Hey everybody, it's Jason Creel and this is Lawn Care Life. Today I'm going to talk about crabgrass and Dallisgrass, and I want to show you these two weeds and show you the difference, explain to you the difference, because oftentimes somebody confuses one for the other, and it's just really a different approach of how you go to get rid of these weeds. You can use some similar products, but anyway, a lot of times it's a different approach. So let me show them to you so you can properly identify, and then we'll talk about some control options for crabgrass and Dallisgrass. Okay, so I'm in Alabama, and oftentimes people say, hey, I believe I've got crabgrass in my yard. I do weed control and fertilization, and so they have big clumps of grassy weeds, and they say, oh, looks like I've got a bunch of crabgrass. I had a guy the other day, and he was wanting a quote for his lawn for me to do weed control and fertilization, and he wasn't happy with his current provider. And I go look at it, he said, look, he's not even getting rid of the crabgrass, and he had a few clumps of Dallisgrass in his yard. And I said, well, that's not crabgrass, that's Dallisgrass. But that's a common mistake. But anyway, we're gonna set the record straight in this video. They're not that hard to tell apart, to be honest with you, if you look at them on a regular basis. And this yard happens to have a bunch of both. This is Dallisgrass, okay? And I want to show you the seed head. Now the grass was mowed recently, but the seed head will get much taller than this. It's very thick, hardy, stalk here on the seed head. The plant has a dull finish to it, so if you were talking sheens on paint finishes, I would say this is a flat and just a dull green color. And the plant, it just grows up right. When you mow your grass in the summertime, I mean 2 or 3 days later, it is significantly higher than the grass. The other thing, when you look at, oftentimes people, it'd be like March or even February, and they'll say, I've got crabgrass in my lawn. If you had crabgrass, at least in my area, in Alabama, our crabgrass starts to germinate typically late February, early March, depending on the weather. And it's very, very tiny until like maybe May. So if you see a big clumpy grassy weed in your yard in February or March, chances are it's not crabgrass. Now, here's the crabgrass. Again, we're going to talk about control options, but you can see how it is just feathered all throughout here. Now, there is a little bit of actual desirable turf grass in here, and there's even some Dallisgrass mixed in here with it. But the light green, this stuff, this is the crabgrass. And it just grows so thick and mats up that honestly your turf grass, it can't compete with it in many situations. This is a centipede lawn, and it's just getting outworked by the crabgrass. Now, one thing is very simple, but is very important to understand, is that Dallisgrass is a perennial and crabgrass is an annual. So when you go buy flowers at your local nursery or whatever, and you're looking for perennials oftentimes, and then they'll often have the annuals. So if you go buy begonias or marigolds or something like that, it'll say that they're annual, meaning basically they're going to live for a season. When the weather changes, they're going to die off. So we get a lot of times here where I live, we'll get pansies in the fall. They'll live through the winter, and then come springtime, people get begonias, zinnias, things like that that'll grow in the hot weather. Crabgrass is an annual, okay, meaning that the plant is going to die off when it gets the freezing cold weather here. The plant will die, but it's going to drop seeds. Those seeds are going to come back next year. So if you have crabgrass one year, you can often see the dead plant over the course of the winter if you know what you're looking for. And sure enough, just like I had this year happen near my house, we had a tomato plant. And guess what? There's more tomato plants growing where the tomato plant was last year. Now, did that tomato plant come back from the dead? No, but it dropped seeds that now have germinated this spring and are growing new tomatoes. That's the case with annual plants like crabgrass. Dallisgrass is like our Bermuda and zoysia lawns. It's a perennial. It's going to go dormant in the wintertime, but then it's going to come back from that same root ball, and it's going to start putting out new growth again. But it's not, again, it's not an annual. So what does that mean? Well, oftentimes people will say, hey Jason, well, I sprayed a pre-emergent and I still got Dallisgrass. You know, well, your pre-emergent is going to be effective on your annual weeds like your crabgrass. So if you get it out before it germinates, the way it works, my understanding is basically when that seed starts to germinate, the pre-emergent is going to kill it very, very early in the life cycle where you're never actually going to see the weed in the lawn. It's not going to have any effect basically on a perennial weed like Dallisgrass. You're going to have to go at with a post-emergent herbicide. What herbicide should you be using for both crabgrass and Dallisgrass? From a pre-emergent standpoint for crabgrass, which is often the cheapest and most effective way to control it, and some of you may say, Jason, where I live it doesn't get below freezing, and so we have to go about it from a post-emergent standpoint. But if you see the crabgrass here, if I would have sprayed a product like Prodiamine out on the lawn in January or February, again, I'm basing this on my area in Alabama. You may live further south, further north, different climates, and it may change year to year. It may get a little warmer earlier in the year, which is going to cause that crabgrass to germinate earlier. But anyway, I tell people it's better to be early than late on your pre-emergent. So if I put my pre-emergent out in January or February, I'm basically going to have almost no crabgrass in the lawn, and that's fantastic. And it's not that expensive using Prodiamine. You can get it as a liquid version, you can get it as a granular version, but getting it out before the crabgrass germinates. And go ahead and, like I said, be better to be early than late. I start spraying around January the 2nd. It takes me through about mid-February to get all my lawns sprayed. And those people typically have very, very little crabgrass. Now, what if you say, Jason, I'm not watching your video until the spring. I'm afraid the crabgrass has already germinated. Then what do you do? Well, in that situation, if it's still very early in the life cycle, you may use a product called Dimension, or you may use a post-emergent for crabgrass, something like Drive Accelerate, something like Solitaire, something like Q-Ball, a product that'll have the active ingredient quinclorac in it. And I can put some links in the description to some of these products, but those products are a post-emergent for crabgrass. Now, the earlier in the life cycle you can get it, probably the more success you're going to have. If you try to spray it in the middle of summer, it is going to be more challenging to get rid of your crabgrass. But like I said, best case scenario, spray it but the Prodiamine before the crabgrass germinates. But if you're early in the life cycle, let's say it's spring, you say, I'm afraid it's already germinated, it's very tiny, you may not even be able to see it, then you may want to go with Dimension. If you get a little bit later in the life cycle or even early in the life cycle, then you might want to go with the quinclorac product. And sometimes what I do, if I get into March and I think, you know what, I think my crabgrass may have already germinated, and I got a new customer just signed up, then I'll put the Prodiamine and mix quinclorac with it. That way, let's say it hadn't germinated yet, the Prodiamine can help me out. If it has germinated, hopefully that quinclorac will knock it out. And that's been effective, but like I said, the best and easiest and often cheapest way is to get your Prodiamine out before it germinates. Now, what about Dallisgrass? You're talking about a very difficult weed to control, and from a post-emergent standpoint, if you live on a golf course, like literally your yard is a golf course, there's a product that's no longer legal on residential properties. It's called MSMA, and you can use it as a post-emergent for both Dallas and crabgrass in a Bermuda lawn. Now, it would beat up this centipede lawn really bad, or zoysia lawn, or St. Augustine lawn, so they're pretty much going to use that on Bermuda. And again, it's not legal on a residential property. So what do you do for a situation like this? Well, the best time to go after it, to try to get rid of it, again, from a post-emergent standpoint, your pre-emergent is not going to do any good. Then you want to wait until the fall. You can spray it all year round if you want to. I mean, but it's your best chance of actually controlling it is in the fall. So let's say October, you come after your Dallisgrass and you spray it with something like Tribute Total, or you use a combination that I use a lot. It's called Celsius and Certainty. Those are two products. By the way, those are also good for crabgrass. From a post-emergent standpoint, you'll get some definite action on crabgrass with those two products. Or there's a product called Manuscript. You know, these are products that are post-emergent products for Dallisgrass. And if you use them 2 to 3 applications in the fall, and then as it goes into winter, hopefully that you were able to control it. But if you start seeing signs of life in your Dallisgrass the following spring, then get it as early as you can before it starts regaining strength and comes back as a total monster in the summer. So let's say it survived your 2 applications in the fall. Start pounding it again early in the spring when it starts showing life with Tribute Total or with Manuscript or with Celsius and Certainty, or some people put Celsius and Revolver. I mean, there's different combinations of product, but it's a very difficult weed to control. The other thing you can do, and I'll have it pop up now where you can watch a whole dedicated video on this if you want to. You can go watch it later. And just search for Lawn Care Life Dallisgrass if you want. There's probably several videos out there. But you can go after it in the wintertime in a dormant Bermuda lawn. So let's say it's December and your Bermuda grass is totally dormant. Then you can mix up glyphosate. And if you're going to spray the whole yard, I do 32 ounces per acre. But let me just tell you, even that doesn't control all of the Dallisgrass. You want to do it on a warm day when the Dallisgrass has some green color to it, but your Bermuda is still dormant. And at 32 ounces per acre, you'll get some activity on it, but you may have to go back and try to finish it off that spring with, if you can get it while the Bermuda is still a little bit mostly dormant, you can spray it with more glyphosate. You can come in and hammer it with Tribute Total or Manuscript or Celsius and Certainty and Revolver or whatever. But you know, it's just a very difficult weed that takes multiple applications typically. Or if you're not afraid of delaying the green up on your Bermuda grass, then you may even go higher than that 32 ounces per acre. So if you want to mix it up in a handheld sprayer, put like 2 ounces of glyphosate per gallon of water. And you want to be careful, don't just go through there spraying the whole thing, because again, you may delay the green up. So if you go through there spraying all kind of weird patterns the following spring, you may have some areas that turn green a lot quicker than other areas. So sometimes it makes sense to go ahead and blanket the whole yard. Again, I'm doing that at 32 ounces per acre. Or if you want to do more spot treating, you still want to be kind of careful. Even in the winter, in my opinion, you want to get all the leaves wet. I don't typically just spray right in the center of the plant, because sometimes you'll damage the center of the plant, but the outside of the plant will survive and the plant will end up surviving. So I try to get the leaves wet on the plant with like 2 ounces per gallon of water. But I try to be careful and not just spray a big circle even when the grass is dormant, because I don't want to delay the green up and have it look weird the following spring. When they put up a seed head, it's very easy to tell them apart. Again, if you're seeing it early in the spring, it's a big clump, it's probably not crabgrass. Now there's other grassy weeds, so it may not be Dallas or crabgrass, but crabgrass has a very fine little seed head. It's real thin. And in our area, the crabgrass is just getting going, and later in the summer, it's really starts to mat up and starts to put up the seed head, and is one of those weeds that's going to make you have to mow your grass very often because it's growing so fast. The Dallisgrass, it starts getting going, turning green, and growing much earlier in the year. And by, where I live, by April, it's a big monster that's ugly in the yard, and by the summer, it's going to be putting up a seed head, and it's just hard to control in the summer. So go after it in the fall, winter, and spring if you can, and just pound it, pound it, pound it. And if you want to get a shovel out and dig it up, if you only got a few clumps, or just spot spray it with some kind of non-selective herbicide that'll just kill it and let the grass fill back in. I wouldn't blame you if you did that, okay? But if you got a whole yard of it, then it's difficult. From a weed control and fertilization business standpoint, tell you what, I probably would be hesitant to take on a customer if their yard was full of Dallisgrass, because it's a real pain to get rid of. Appreciate you watching the video. If you're in the weed control business or thinking about starting one, I've got some resources over at lawncarelife.com, some courses available. I've got documents to teach you programs, pricing, all kind of marketing stuff, equipment. I've got stuff for mosquito business. I got stuff for mowing business, a lot of resources over there. And there's over 600 videos on the channel. Sometimes people say, Jason, what do I do? I want to start a lawn business. You got any advice for me? I said, well, if you want to watch the 600 videos, I think you will learn something. So there's a lot of free information, but if you want some fast, concise information dealing with specific topics that's not found on YouTube, you can go to lawncarelife.com. I'll put some links for the products that I've talked about in this video, and hopefully you guys can have some more success getting rid of the crabgrass and Dallisgrass in your lawn. Appreciate you watching. Talk to you later. Bye.